When Congress failed to act on the DREAM Act effectively, that's when the Obama administration came in and created this thing called Deferred Action on Childhood Arrivals, which is not in fact legal status. It's just an agreement to not deport those people during the time that this is in place. So it's a promise not to deport you and to give you means to work and go to school until some period in the future yet to be determined. That's what was happening in the Obama administration. So now that the period in the future yet to be determined is now under the Trump administration, because people have said, is it constitutional what President Obama did? Well, whether you agree that it was or was not, if it was constitutional for Obama to do it, it's just as constitutional for President Trump to undo it, because it's executive action. It can be undone by the next executive, and that's exactly what's happened. So I hope that people would realize these 800,000 people who got protected during the DACA period, they are more or less our peers. And the reality is we've already as a society invested in them. They got educated in this country, they speak English, they have job contacts, they have social capital, they have all those things that anybody born in this country and has legal status here, you know, you yourself, you acquire that as you're going up through your young adult process, and all these kids have this already. So it makes no sense to just throw them away. These are our community members, so you know, we need to act to try and protect them so that they don't stay in limbo. Because if they, chances are they're not going to go back to their quote home countries voluntarily. So if they cannot work, go to school, and progress in the normal way that young adults do progress, then what are their alternatives? Crime, you know, welfare, you know, the shady economy. They're their options. So there won't be any immediate effect for our students, and that's one thing I am proud to say with regard to IU, is the fact that they otherwise would meet our residency requirements, i.e. they went to Jeffersonville High School, or you know, they can show they've been living in Indiana for 12 continuous months, and that also applies to our reciprocity with regard to the 7 counties in Kentucky. So we, the registrars of IU, were authorized by the university registrar to allow, to make decisions to classify those students as reciprocity or residency based on those facts, and normally the fact that they are not, you know, they don't have legal status would preclude that. So this was something the university chose to do. As a university, all campuses are doing this. And the nice thing is, in our policy, once a student has achieved residency or reciprocity status, they get to keep that until they graduate. So the good news is, once DACA dies in March 2018, our students who have gotten reciprocity or residency will be able to continue to graduate. They may find that their employers may tell them, okay, you have to produce documentation immediately that says you're authorized to work, or I have to terminate you. The legislature chooses to act before March 8th, that these same people can then turn around and convert that status into something more permanent. Well, great. Do we think that's going to happen? Honestly, no. I don't think that the current Congress is going to find the common ground to pass the DREAM Act. And so then the question begins, all right, so after March 8th, what this means is all those people who are formerly covered by DACA are now presumably open for prosecution for removal by the U.S. government. And so they have to kind of go back into the shadows, be careful not to fall across an immigration agent's path by doing things like driving without insurance, or driving without a license, or you know, any the smallest infractions that you and I could probably get out of with maybe a $250 fine becomes a huge removal issue for them. Yes. So they have to kind of be super cautious. I think that one of the things that did come out in the discussion afterwards is that even though Americans, and particularly young Americans, like to believe in this myth of the immigrant nation, we always say we're a nation of immigrants, we're a nation of immigrants, and there is that great poem at the base of the Statue of Liberty, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. And everyone thinks that that's really what America position regarding immigrants has been. In fact, when you look at our history, we have been horribly unwelcoming to immigrants. That poem at the bottom of the Statue of Liberty is maybe an aspirational ideal, and I think it gives hope to people living abroad who are thinking about coming to America because they think that's the kind of attitude they're going to encounter here. When in fact, when you look at our history, we haven't been, and most of our immigration law has been targeted at trying to preserve the original ethnic stock of the 13 original colonies, i.e., Northern European, Anglo, white. And so any immigration action that tends to threaten the original stock, if you will, gets met with a lot of resistance. And I don't think that people even realize that that's true. That even though we go to public forums, we talk about the immigrant nation and how many people's grandparents, maybe yours, maybe mine, were, they came here with nothing and then built up a whole life. And, as a result of that, you have a better life, other people have a better life. But it wasn't because we threw up our arms and welcomed them. We made it difficult, and it was a struggle. And we continue to do that. That's what I see what's happening with DACA and the failure to act the DREAM Act is the DREAM Act will nationalize a whole bunch of brown-skinned people. That's the reality, and I think that there's a racist tinge to this. The reality is that most of the illegals in this country come from Mexico. That's an accident of geography. And if you go over to like Greece, their problem is Albanians because it's really easy for Albanians to jump into Greece or Italy. This is us, because we share that long border with Mexico. Mexicans are the ones who tend to show up in our country the most often unauthorized. So,
and they get the most backlash from it.
And they get the most backlash because it's very easy to, their language skills, their skin, their names. I've been discussing this with some other students, some students here that are on DACA, and we were discussing what is it like for you when these issues that are in the national news come up for discussion. Their entire class kind of turns to them okay, now speak for the entire Latin American continent.
Yes.
They're like, I don't really feel
comfortable
doing that. I don't, this is not, I don't really identify as a Latin American. So I really can't speak to what the Latin American experience is. I just know that I am here. I'm just as American as you are.
Yes.
And the one particular gentleman I was talking to, nothing about his physical appearance would suggest that he was Hispanic. He looks as Anglo as I do, but he has a last name that ends with an EZ, and he is in fact of Hispanic heritage. So he could pass, except for the fact that he doesn't have the documents. So it's a heartbreaking situation, and I don't know that it's going to be resolved. And I don't think that until more people realize that it's actually in our best interest, because we have educated these people, to find a way to integrate them into mainstream society, and then continue to bring them here without regard to their skin tone. Because here's a shocking reality: white people haven't been having babies. That's another thing that's happening, is that we have this thing called demographic shift that as society's industrialized, birth rate goes down, birth rate goes down, birth rate goes down. And so those original Anglo colonists, the descendants of those people, we stopped having babies a couple of generations ago, or at least it's not as many. So even amongst native-born population, there are more Hispanics than Anglos. So the shift toward a different ethnic face is already happening. And it's a little bit too late to worry about it now. So the best thing is let's take these children growing into adults who are kind of on the verge of our full society and integrate them fully to take advantage of all the schooling we gave them and instill in them truly American values, so that they don't feel like they have loyalty to another country someplace else. Let's fully integrate them, and let's make that part of our immigration policy going forward, as opposed to restricting. Let's try to find ways to get the best and the brightest here, regardless of what skin tone they happen to have. So